Hey, look, I wanted to show y'all something real quick, something that I found hidden in the Bible. Really, I was going to stop doing this, but someone's like, nah, you need to go ahead and do it for the people that's interested, right? So there's something I'm gonna see if I can edit in a video. All right, this is called the laws of motion. And with the laws of motion, it says that if you know, like say, there's the earth, the moon, and the sun, right? So if you know the momentum and the location in relations to the orbit and revolutions and shit like that of each one, then you can accurately predict certain future events. You can also retrodict events, which means such as seasons, eclipses, and things of that nature. So what it is our Milky Way, our solar system, the galaxy that we are in, traverses around the center of the universe. And so there's another kind of galactical season, and the forces of different stars and different sectors of the universe that it enter in has certain effects on our planet. Just like the moon, when it's in apogee and things like that, it causes high tides and stuff like that. So there's prophecies that are in the Bible. And I found a hidden numerical system in the book of in the book of Genesis chapter 5 that allows you to accurately predict the things that are mentioned in the book of Revelation, starting at chapter 8, corresponding with the blowing of the 7 trumpets. For example, one of those things is a great war, and it mentions it later on in the book of Revelations, or it's 17 or 16, and it talks about the battle of Armageddon. And so what this is my supposition, but it's also what I'm developing is called asyrological. And it's when you have certain premises that are associated to your supposition, and if they are true, then also the whole thing in general is true. So what I'm showing you is that what we're trying to do is we're showing that there's repetitious events in history that occur often and that we are able to identify and predict. One of those is the Battle of Armageddon. So if my theory is true, then there's a point here that should be known that we can retrodict and predict happen. Then there's another point here, which is mentioned in the book of Revelations right here, which is when the armies gather at Armageddon for war. And it's actually a misinterpretation. Wait a second. I think it's Megiddo. Can't pronounce it, but I can spell it. All right, so we're going to use these numbers to accurately predict the day that it happens, as mentioned in the book of Revelation. But in order to do that, we need to find point A. And we have point A. The last time there was a battle, and it occurred for 6 days, it was in 608 BC. It lasted for 70 years. And that 70 year ended on 538 BC. Some people might not know that time before time in BC, it goes in reverse. All right. So, for example, if this year was 608 BC, then next year would be 607 BC. All right. So what we're going to do is this. I'm going to show you how these numbers in here applied to this and other factors will allow us to accurately predict some of the events that are mentioned in the book of Revelation. And we're going to focus on certain numbers in here. Certain numbers would be too much to go on right now. All right, so first what we're going to do is this. All right, so in conjunction with the prophecy in the book of Revelation is the book of Daniel, and now I'll go over it from what I remember by heart. What we're going to focus on is Daniel chapter 9. In Daniel chapter 9 verse 2, it says, and he, Jeremiah, understood by the number of the books that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolation of Jerusalem. So our main focus of these prophecies are going to evolve around Jerusalem, events that occur in Jerusalem and around Jerusalem. Okay, so if you continue to go on, there's another prophecy. It starts on Daniel 9:24. It talks about a war. It talks about a wall and a street being rebuilt during troublous times. All these are key factors into interpreting and coming up with the dates that are associated with the book of Revelation. So our main number that we're going to focus on is 70. So one of my theories is that there's 13 constellations. Many people only know 12, but the 13th constellation is the Serpent Beater. It's depicted as an eagle with a serpent in its claws, such as the eagle that's on the back of the dollar bill. So my theory is that throughout these 13 constellations, we'll just say these are 13 points. Every so period, astrological age, like we're supposed to be in the age of Aquarius, that's supposed to last around 2,300 to 2,500 years. So in total, from my calculations, in a whole galactical year, it is actually that amount of years. 31,019 years. In each astrological age is an average that many years. All right. So besides that, every so age, there's a period of 70 years of repetitious events that occur, such as these 6-day wars. So we're going to focus also on 6-day wars that correspond to Jerusalem and things of that nature. All right, so now let's reverse. Let's use these numbers right here. All right, so the war end, we're trying to look for what's called the interpolator. The interpolator. So we know that point A is going to be, I'm sorry, I just got a text message. So we'll just make this the last day, which is BC. All right. So now let's take this number right here, right? And let's subtract that. Okay. So we're going to take 205. I should have had this written out so I could just talk. And this is going to be 1967. This is an important year because this is going to be the year that starts off the next 70-year period. And so 1967. However, this is not going to be the time frame of the actual war. And we're going to get into that. So we're going to go to the book of Daniel, right? And we want to find out, when is there a significant period in modern times? We're not talking about back in the days of Nehemiah. We're talking about modern times within the last 50, 60 years or so, that there was an important event surrounding Jerusalem and Israel where there was a wall and a street that was rebuilt during troublous time, and also that there was a period of a war for 6 days. Well, this occurred on June 5th, 1967. It is called the 6-Day War. And I'll give you a little brief overview of what happened on that day. Okay, so on June 5th, 1967, Jerusalem, the Israelis invade Egypt and Sinai. And then on the very next day, around Jerusalem, all these armies were centered around Jerusalem where the Western Wall is. Okay, and so that date is going to be 6/6/67. You can look this up. All right, so we have another date in here, 6/6/67. Is this a coincidence? We're about to find out. Now, in Daniel chapter 9:24, it says, "And from the going forth of the command to restore and to rebuild the wall, there shall be 7 sevens." Many people interpret that as 49 years, but I've found that it's actually saying 7 sevens. It's actually saying 7 years. So 7 years from this date. 7 years from this date, which will be in 1974. But we want an accurate date. So what we're going to do is we are going to... how did I do that again? It's 7 years and 18 days, and I didn't really forget how I did that. Anyway, the date is July 18, 1974. I don't have any old paperwork, so I totally forgot how did I come up with that date. Anyway, but that's the date. Also, on this very same date, let me give you another course through history. Okay, so when the wall was restored to Jerusalem, what they did was there was a bunch of old houses in front of the Western Wall. Let's say this was the Western Wall. So there's a bunch of old houses in front of the Western Wall. The streets was all messed up because of the Muslim people didn't take care of it too tough. So this is what they did. They tore down all the houses, and what they did was they built a plaza. Some call it the Western Wall Plaza. The Muslims call it the Al-Barak Plaza. Barak, B-U-R-A-Q, I believe, and that's what Muhammad teetered in order to go up in heaven and petition the people so they didn't have to pray 5 times a day. So they tore all those houses down, and then there were other things that were occurring that was slowing up that process. And so this period actually took 7 years. They also rebuilt the street and made a highway on that area. And so guess what date this was completed? It was completed on this exact date right here. I need to really tell you, because I don't want you to be like, oh, he just guessed that. That's not a total 7 years, and it is. And I just cannot remember for the life of me why it's actually July 18 instead of 6/6/74. But it'll come to me as I keep going. All right, so, and then it says this. He says, okay, so after that, in Daniel 9:26, it says that 62 years is going to pass. The Messiah is going to be cut off. There's going to be a great flood. And the wall, the sanctuary will be destroyed by the people of the prince who is to come. So how do we find out when that day occurs? Well, how many? Okay, so we have 62 years. So if we add 62 years to here, that is simply 2036. However, that is not complete. Oh, I think that's how. That is not complete because every 4 years, there's a leap year, and that means there's an extra day in each year. So in order to determine the exact amount of time that is allowed to 62 years, we will divide it by 4, and it will be 15.5, which is 15 extra days and 5 extra hours. So if we are to add that, 62 years, 15 days, 5 hours, we will get August the 3rd, 2036, and this corresponds to is it the 3rd or the 4th? This corresponds to the blowing of the 4th trumpet. See, in the book of Daniel, it says that the end of it will be with a flood, and so in when the 4th trumpet blows, it says that 1/3 of the moon and the sun and the stars will be struck. That is not to be taken literally. What it is saying that there is going to be an alignment where the shadow that is cast will strike 1/3 of the stars and the planets that are aligned with the sun. And what this is called, if I spell it correctly, is a ZYGY. Do not ask me to pronounce that. What is that? Well, every 18.6 years is a metonic cycle. And what is a metonic cycle? A metonic cycle is when at the end of the metonic cycle, floods and stuff like that arises. You can actually Google that. I'm already at 12 minutes. I didn't want this to be that long of a video, but you can Google that. So and guess what? Just so happens by coincidence that when this metonic cycle ends, in the near future, it will be on this very exact date that corresponds with the blowing of the 4th trumpet. I'm going to end this video right here because this was actually long more than what I intended it to be. But if you have any more questions or you would like to know more, just let me know. I have all kind of stuff. I have stuff that's explains stuff about the back of the dollar bill. Believe it or not, this has nothing to do with the Illuminati. This has something to do with the cult of Osiris. You see how you have Anua Coeptis Novus, Ordui Seclorum. I'm mixing them up. Okay, and people usually connect these to make an upside down 5-point star, but that is not correct. There's already pyramid here. So what you need to do is connect the A to the O to the S. Sorry, I'm using one hand. And so what you have here is a to the O to the S. And so you have AOS. AOS is another name for Osiris, in which the Sirius constellation is, which is the 3 stars that correspond or so aligns to the guise of pyramids. But that's a whole nother video. I have some of everything. I have actually created a trigonometry function to precisely give an accurate interpretation, a mathematical interpretation of these dates to test them to show that how correct they are.